What's up, family? It's your boy Danny, fresh in the flesh, on YouTube's most criminally underrated channel, the channel where we make it all make sense. That's right, all of it. In today's video, we're going to talk about Herman Pontzer's new offering, which is a contribution to the ever-expanding diet and exercise literature, or fitness literature. I'm going to tell you exactly why, even though it's nothing new and or original or special, you should still read the book. The only difference between Gary Taubes' magnum opus and Herman Pontzer's new book is that Taubes explicitly rejected the notion that his Good Calories, Bad Calories book represented, or his work represented, something novel. In fact, he believed, and believes to this day, I believe, that his work was a kind of ad fontes, Martin Luther style reformation in nutrition, that he was going back to the source. Whereas Pontzer seems to think, at least as far as I can tell, that he's covering new ground. We're going to stack both of their works up against what I consider to be one of, if not the most important paper in the recent literature. It's a position paper by the ISSN, which is the International Society of Sports Nutrition, which serves as a kind of home for Alan Aragon and Brad Schoenfeld and some of the other big names in the biz. Today's video, and this is no exaggeration, no word of a lie, is incredibly important. I'm going to tell you the solution to the obesity epidemic at the personal level, at least. This is a huge topic, obviously, but I'm going to manage to review Pontzer's new work, Taubes, the ISSN paper, and solve the obesity epidemic at the personal level, all in about 30 minutes or so. Satisfaction guaranteed, or you can have your money back. As always, you can see what I'm talking about and follow along by checking out the links in the description down below. What I won't do is try to sell you anything. There's none of that shit in there. It's literally all the show notes, everything related to the show, and track markers. That's it. That's all I put there. And I actually spent a lot of time doing that, so take advantage. There isn't too many of them today, so with only 1 or 2 Easter eggs, so it should be pretty easy for you to keep up. First of all, my comments about the book itself. It's funny, it's well written, it's conversational in tone, the biographical details are cool. Pontzer definitely succeeds in relaying how much he likes to drink alcohol. I too am a fan, although he sneaks in the phrase dank memes, and that's reason enough alone, as far as I'm concerned, for you to read the whole book. He is not a hack like me. He's not a layman. He really cares about this stuff as well, and he has spent his entire life, as you'll see if you read the book, in one capacity or another involved in the science of energetics. Dr. Herman Pontzer absolutely rocked the nutrition and health and fitness space this year, earlier, when he published his book on energetics and metabolism called Burn. New research blows the lid off of how we really burn calories, lose weight, and stay healthy. In addition to coming up with that subtitle and publishing, what is going on with subtitles? And publishing the book, he's been doing the podcast circuit, the YouTube circuit, and duking it out with some of the big boys on the block in from his Twitter account. The book was positively reviewed in all kinds of media, despite generally being framed as somehow like disruptive of the diet and exercise consensus. Starting off, as these things often do, with the enfant terrible, the pain in the ass, the all-around bane of the dietary industrial complex, Gary Taubes. He was already on the correct track and the same track as Dr. Pontzer in an article that he wrote for New York Magazine in 2007, sometime in 2007. We already knew that exercise didn't really work on its own decades ago, and he's kind of summing up the research when he says, from the article, the Finnish report, the most scientifically rigorous review of the evidence to date, can hardly be said to have cleared up the matter of exercise. When the Finnish investigators looked at the results of the dozen best constructed experimental trials that addressed weight maintenance, that is, successful dieters who were then trying to keep off the pounds they had shed, weight maintenance, they found that everyone regains weight. That is saying that, to a first approximation, diets don't work. We already know that they don't. It continues. And depending on the type of trial, exercise would either decrease the rate of weight regain by 3.2 ounces per month, or increase its rate by 1.8 ounces per month. As the Finns themselves concluded with their characteristic understatement, the relationship between exercise and weight is, quote, more complex, unquote, than they might have otherwise imagined. Further on in the article, Gary goes on to say, granted, all this still doesn't explain why we bought into this idea of eating less and moving more, and that we could just compensate by exercising. One simple reason is that the health reporters bought it, and we were reading their articles, not the research themselves. We're all guilty of that, even me. It's hard because the research is expanding at such a exponential rate. There's no way for anyone to keep up with the research, but moving on. In 1977, for instance, the National Institutes of Health hosted its second conference on obesity and weight control. Quote, the importance of exercise in weight control is less than it might be believed, end quote, the assembled experts concluded. Quote, because increases in energy expenditure due to exercise also tend to increase food consumption. And it is not possible to predict whether the increased caloric output will be outweighed by the greater food intake. The problem, as Russell Wilder, an obesity and diabetes specialist at the Mayo Clinic, and his contemporaries saw it, was that light exercise burns an insignificant number of calories, amounts that are undone by comparatively effortless changes in diet, and unconscious would be the real issue. In 1942, Louis Newberg of the University of Michigan calculated that a 250-pound man expends 3 calories climbing a flight of stairs. That's the equivalent of depriving himself of a 1/4 teaspoon of sugar or 1/100th of an ounce of butter. He will have to climb 20 flights of stairs to rid himself of the energy contained in 1 slice of bread, Newberg observed. So why not skip the stairs, skip the bread, and call it a day? More strenuous exercise, these physicians further argued, doesn't help matters because it works up an appetite. Vigorous muscle exercise usually results in an immediate demand for a large meal, noted 𝙂𝙗𝙚𝙗𝙚. Taubes tells us in a short article almost exactly what Pontzer takes an entire book to tell us. Although the ride is enjoyable, both the article and the book, you should read them both. What actually happens in most people, and what we can thank Pontzer for, is for providing us with a new and more complete understanding about what exercise does in the bodies of both healthy, weight-stable folks who are not trying to lose weight, and people defending a highly elevated body weight set point. That is, people that are trying to do weight maintenance or prevent weight regain after losing it. That is, the body will reduce expenditure elsewhere. Pontzer calls this the constrained daily energy expenditure model. Further into the Taubes piece, we read that by 1990, Newsweek was declaring exercise an essential element of any weight loss program. And the Times had stated on those infrequent occasions that when exercise isn't enough to lose weight, you must also make sure that you don't overeat. We'll see that despite Taubes' and Pontzer's contention that this is in fact otherwise 100% true. You absolutely need to exercise. If Taubes and Pontzer would just listen to Aragon or read the literature on this one, we could all stop fighting and get to work fixing the obesity crisis as a united front. We should note, however, that it isn't just exercise that's essential. It's resistance training that's absolutely crucial, which we will find out from the ISSN paper, especially for the formerly obese, okay? Resistance training. Pontzer has done us a great service, however, the same service that Gary Taubes did when Good Calories, Bad Calories came out. He got everybody talking, and he's rounding off the understanding that we once had previously but lost. And that's the understanding that exercise does not and cannot work on its own. Now, he says it doesn't work at all, but he's wrong. Just depends what you mean by work. It doesn't burn calories, but we don't need to. That's not exactly what we're talking about here. Although if you knew where to look, we had already regained this understanding. Pontzer did manage to put some of it together in a popular book, and that can be summarized in a couple of sentences. In humans and other endothermic species, TDEE, that's total daily energy expenditure, is homeostatically constrained, that it's part of the regulatory hierarchy, within a narrow range. Like blood pressure, like blood sugar, like body temperature, like all kinds of stuff. The model predicts that within low to moderate physical activity levels, increases in physical activity lead to increases in total daily energy expenditure. Yet after reaching a certain higher physical activity level plateau, further increases in physical activity do not increase TDEE. Instead, those high physical activity levels would entail reallocation of the constrained TDEE caloric budget from non-essential physiological activities, for example, excessive innate immunity or immune system activity, over to the physical activity. What this means at the extremes of this spectrum is that massive long-term increases in energy output are completely offset in the body by proportional decreases in energy expenditure and increased energy intake. In the most extreme cases of energy expenditure, like for instance running 6 marathons a week for 20 weeks in a row, like the Race Across the USA bonanza that Herman Pontzer talked about in his book, you will lose significant amounts of fat mass and lean tissue. But generally you won't. What Pontzer was able to do was pull together all these threads, starting off with the initial very simple observation that the hardworking and hard-hiking Hadza peoples don't have a higher TDEE, that's total daily energy expenditure, than sedentary Americans do. Pontzer, a PhD who spent his career studying energy expenditure among the Hadza tribe, a group of hunter-gatherers in northern Tanzania, claims that diet and not exercise is the key to losing weight. By taking urine samples to determine their rate of carbon dioxide production, you can follow me along, I'm reading from an interview and this links in the description down below. By taking urine samples to determine their rate of carbon dioxide production, Pontzer found that although the Hadzas have a much more active lifestyle than their urbanite counterparts like us in the USA, members of the tribe hunt for food while office workers eat seamless at their desks. Both expend roughly the same amount of energy over the course of the day. And we're going to see that Pontzer's claim about the key to losing weight, that diet is all and exercise doesn't matter, is just absolutely dead wrong. Diet and exercise are both absolutely crucial and critical for losing and maintaining weight loss. However, Pontzer is right that weight-stable people at a healthy body weight don't really burn any calories at all by doing the type of exercise that these type of people would normally do. And this is crucial to understand in the completed context of total daily energy expenditure. What do I always say, family? Goals and context first. Yeah, you'll burn calories while you're working out, but that doesn't matter in the broader context. Moving on to Alan Aragon in the ISSN paper. Also, criticism time. Dr. Pontzer has said some dumb in interviews, primarily that exercise doesn't matter for losing or maintaining weight loss. I also think that he's getting way more credit for the originality of his viewpoint than he deserves, but, whatever, maybe I'm just being a sore loser. We've all been told that the more active you are, the more calories you burn, said Herman Pontzer, an evolutionary anthropologist and Duke professor whose new book, Burn, is out now. But bodies aren't simple engines. We're evolved, complex beings, he said. Taubes has been pounding the table, Gary, for almost 15 years about how we are evolved, complex beings, and how that fact should better inform our understanding of the energy balance equation. He's also been telling people for about the same amount of time that light exercise is worthless and completely undone or offset by increased caloric intake. Gary has been working in the right direction for a long time. Think what you will of the man. However, first place prize goes to Alan Aragon and the ISSN, who have already had a completed understanding of the entire diet and exercise issue for over 5 years. One that isn't deficient in the way that either Taubes' or Pontzer's idea is deficient either. From the ISSN paper that I've linked in the description down below, the position paper on diets and body composition. The oversimplification of the CICO or CICO or calories in, calories out concept has led to a call to eat less, move more. Even Aragon right there is admitting, like, I don't understand why Taubes says that people don't agree that it's been oversimplified, but whatever. To eat less, move more as a solution to the obesity epidemic or pandemic. While this advice technically is the answer, the challenge lies in programming the variables so that the desired energy balance is sustained over the long term and the targeted body composition is reached and maintained while preventing or minimizing REE, that's resting energy expenditure loss, and which is what Taubes' his contention is that that's what's leading to weight regain, okay? Involuntary adaptive shifts separate humans from machines. Pontzer, again, but bodies aren't simple engines. We are evolved complex beings. ISSN paper, contra Gary Taubes. Involuntary adaptive shifts separate humans from machines. Wow, Taubes really should have read this paper as well, especially since him and Alan Aragon, like one of the lead authors of the paper, are supposedly like enemies. Let's keep reading though. More from the ISSN paper, the most important paper you could possibly read if you're going to pick one. We differ from bomb calorimeters primarily due to our dynamic nature, which is based on the homeostatic drive toward survival, or homeodynamic if you prefer. When hypocaloric conditions, that means low calorie conditions or low energy intake conditions, are imposed through diet, energy expenditure has a tendency to decrease. Conversely, when a caloric surplus is imposed, energy expenditure has a tendency to increase. That's why it's hard to lose weight if you're big, and it's hard to put on muscle mass if you're skinny like me. Pontzer, there are ancient, evolved responses to negative energy balance in humans and other animals. When our bodies sense that we're not getting enough to eat or to meet our daily energy requirements, we start throttling down. The body struggles mightily to balance its energy budget so that expenditure doesn't exceed intake. Our thyroid gland, the body's master controller of metabolic rate, reduces the amount of thyroid hormone produced, which is like taking your foot off the gas pedal. Our cells slow down at the cellular level, they do, which lowers BMR and daily energy expenditure. At the same time, the hormones in brain circuitry that control hunger increase our drive for food. We become ravenous, fixated on food as our body directs our mental energies toward obtaining or finding something, anything to eat, which is really easy to do if you have bags of chips in your cupboards. This is the evolved starvation response, also known as dieting. That's clever. That's funny. Good job, Herman. Or as Aragon et al. Already perfectly stated it, in hypocaloric conditions, adaptive thermogenesis, which is a misnomer, it should more accurately be called adaptive thermoreduction, due to a reduction in energy expenditure in response to reductions in energy intake. The changes in energy expenditure are not always completely accounted for by changes in lean mass and fat mass. Okay? Therefore, in the context of hypocaloric diets, adaptive thermogenesis is a term used to describe the gray area where losses in metabolic tissue cannot simply explain the reduced energy expenditure, the starvation response, or the diet response that Pontzer is talking about. The mechanisms underlying AT, or adaptive thermogenesis, or adaptive thermoreduction, as he would prefer to call it, are unclear, but speculations include increased sympathetic drive and decreased thyroid activity. Pontzer, thyroid. Aragon, thyroid. Okay, moving on. The solution to the obesity epidemic. Not only did Alan and the boys, right, Aragon et al., describe this problem perfectly and the same way that Pontzer does, they already had the answer to the problem too, and they published the answer to the problem in the exact same paper that they defined the problem or described the problem in June of 2017. Continuing on from the paper, a classic experiment by Label. I don't know how to say that. We're going with Label. I think that doesn't sound right. I think it's Label. Label et al. Demonstrated that in obese subjects, a 10% or greater weight loss resulted in a 15% greater energy expenditure reduction than that could be predicted by body composition change. However, these subjects were put on 800 kilocal or 800 calories, we're just going to say 800 calorie, liquid diet composed of 15% protein. Does that sound right to you guys listening to my channel, fans? I hope not. 45% carbohydrate and 40% fat. Imposed reductions in energy expenditure via low protein VLED diets, or very low energy density or very low energy diets, do not necessarily reflect what is possible under conditions involving better macronutrient targets and proper training. That's post-Keynesian nutrition right there. Macros first, right? The micro does not drive the macro, okay? The macro drives primarily the micro, and it's constrained by the micro, but it drives it, okay? That's post-Keynesianism applied to nutrition. In contrast to Label et al.'s findings and a recent study by Rosenbaum and Label using the same low-protein VLE diet, Briner et al., this is a different study, observed an increase resting metabolic rate. So I don't know about total daily energy expenditure, but an increased rate. So we could probably assume an increased TDEE by the end of 12 weeks in subjects on an 800 calorie liquid diet. Okay, so both eating liquid diets. The discrepancy between Briner's results and those of Label can be explained by better macronutrient composition or distribution and the implementation of resistance exercise. Briner's VLED was composed of 40% protein. That's right, 40. While Label's was 15% protein, 30 grams. That's one meal of protein. Briner's subjects underwent full body resistance training, full body, 3 times a week, while Label's design neglected exercise programming altogether. What the actual I'm glad he did it, but still. Does this sound like Alan Aragon and the ISSN are promoting some form of calories in, calories out as it's mistakenly understood by the general public? Does this sound like psycho to you? Does this sound psycho? No, it doesn't sound that way to me either. It sounds like protein targeting and weightlifting. Eat meat, move weight. Do you know what percentage of protein a meal composed of ground beef and rice and a little salsa works out to be? About 40%. Where have I heard all this before, man? I remember me! This is what I say! Or, for my vegan family, if you can't eat meat and move weight, eat beans, move weight, and fart. I don't understand I really don't know what we're fighting about, because it seems like we all agree. The problem is solved. Yes! Well, everyone agrees except for Gary. But he has a death grip on the CIM model, and he will not let go or pivot, so we're going to have to leave him behind, folks.
No one gets left behind! No one gets left behind!
Aragon et al. Continue as follows. Camps et al. Found that after significant weight loss resulting from 8 weeks on a VLED, reduced energy expenditure beyond what was predicted was still present after a year. This is what happened with the Biggest Loser contestants too. I don't know if you've read that study, but that'll be linked in the description down below too. Kevin Hall did that. While this can be viewed as the unfortunate persistence of weight loss-induced AT, adaptive thermogenesis, or thermoreduction, like we should call it, the actual difference in RMR at baseline and versus the 52 weeks, so after the year reduction, was a reduction of 81 kilocalories, or 81 calories, I hate saying that, where total weight loss was 5.4 kilograms, 5 kilograms of which was fat mass. I think that was total weight loss at the beginning, though, of the 8 weeks, so I think that it was only a little bit reduced because they probably gained back most of that weight. But continuing on. However, it is worth reiterating that higher protein alongside resistance training, has been shown to prevent this impairment despite severe caloric restriction. 800 calories a day, man. That's starvation. This is it, people. This is the solution. I'm giving you the f***ing secret. I'm giving it away here. You can manifest it. All right? The problem has already been solved for you. Go execute. Stay on the perimeter of the grocery store. Protein up, resistance training. Eat meat, move weight. Or for vegan family, eat beans, move weight. Now it's time for Pontzer being dumb. We're going to go over some of the dumb shit he said. We're on fixed incomes, Pontzer said, of human physiology. When you spend more energy on physical activity, the body spends less in other places. Well, when you eat less, the body makes you spend less too. So I don't know what the fuck you're trying to tell me to do here, bud. Pontzer argues that even our understanding of ideal caloric intake is wrong-headed. 9-year-olds burn 2,000 calories a day, he said. For adults, it's closer to 3,000. Well, not everything makes it down to the popular level, doctor, but we already knew this too. The ISSN paper, the same paper, I think, here it goes. Chronic overfeeding Adaptations also vary according to training status. Garth et al. Compared the 12-week effects of a 3,585 calorie a day diet, up 544 calories from baseline, increased baseline intake in a nutritionally counseled group. If 3,585 calories was 5,044 calories above their baseline, well, that means that baseline was just about 3,000 calories a day. Oh, this should be good. What do we have here? Pontzer also has a surprising takeaway. You're not in control of your metabolism, he said.
Literally nobody was surprised.
Nobody that has struggled to build lean tissue or struggled to lose fat was surprised by this takeaway. That's why he believes the only way to slim down is through diet. What? You already know why this is fucking stupid, so I'm not going to go over it. I have to agree with, and I can't believe I'm doing this, but I have to agree with BioLane right here. This is a really stupid idea. The 𝙊𝙬𝙧 tribe's balanced seasonal omnivore menu with carbs from grains, starch from tubers, I think some of them grow grains, some of them, not all of them, starch from tubers, and sugar from honey makes for a good example. He suggests eating protein and fiber-rich meals that are satisfying and keep you full longer. Well, honey is not exactly fiber-rich, but whatever. Wow, that's a really radical suggestion. High protein, fiber-rich meals? Like, what the dude? This is what everyone's been saying for forever. As Westerners, he said, we get overly caught up in excluding entire categories of food. We aren't overly caught up in this. Like, obesity rates are proof that we aren't anywhere near overly caught up enough in doing this. The 𝙊𝙬𝙧 have diets that are massively restricted without having to worry about it, though. They don't have a choice, okay? Finally, though, Pontzer demonstrates a somewhat better understanding of the issue when he says, if you villainize certain foods, you get to weird conclusions like an apple is bad for you because of the sugar content in fruit, he wrote. Or he said, you guys already know how I think about this or how I feel about this. Nothing is inherently anything, right? So health is not an inherent property of any foodstuff. The total context is what matters here. One exception, he notes, processed foods. Like we talked about last week, which Pontzer said blows our brain up by overwhelming our brain's reward system. I hate the hyper-palatable reward system bullshit with the fire of 1,000 suns. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about that in a while when we go over 𝙁𝙁𝙗𝙚𝙯's book. But this is it, man. This is it. Everybody agrees that processed food is the problem. But they don't really want to upset the apple cart by demanding it be outlawed or petition that it be outlawed. And in some cases, they don't want to piss off their paymasters. But I know where their bread is margarine. Stay on the perimeter of the grocery store, family. Eat meat, move weight. He's also suspicious, Pontzer said, of trendy low-carb, low-sugar, paleo, or carnivore diets, which claim to mimic the diet of hunter-gatherer tribes. You, Herman. In reality, Pontzer said that the 𝙊𝙬𝙧s are not merely so strict about what they ingest. Yes, they are. They don't have a choice. There's no Safeway out there, dude, in Tanzania, okay? Use diet to watch your weight, he said, and exercise for everything else. That's Pontzer's bottom line. Wrong. Use the scale to watch your weight, which is Pontzer's advice, actually, from his book. He says it multiple times. But seriously, this is really, really wrong, okay? And after watching this video, you already know why. Despite the dumb shit he says in interviews, I really enjoyed Pontzer's book, and he should be thanked, honestly, for reigniting the diet and exercise conversation in a new way. That said, he's given us a lot to chew on, and he's pointed a finger at processed food. Congratulations, well done, lad.
Job well done, lad.
Pick up a copy of his book, follow him on Twitter, and if today my video gave you any value at all, please consider clicking the like button. That said, make sure you lift weights. Don't listen to this fool, okay? He's not a fool. Don't listen to that foolish part of what he said. No shit I found on the internet this week. We're skipping it because it's already too late. But getting to moralizing, which is what I believe is the root of all evil, which we're going to get to some videos about that stuff later, about religion, morality, philosophy. The older I get, the more I realize that moralizing is the root of all evil. Yes, I realize that's ironic. It's more gluttony than sloth, Pontzer says. It's neither. Neither? Neither. We aren't simple engines, Herman. We're complex machines, and our intake is under just as much non-conscious control as our expenditure. How could you write the book that you wrote, right, and not come to this same exact conclusion? That's mind-boggling to me.
Did you just say mind-boggling?
Yeah, mind-boggling. You know, when things are so crazy, it gets your thoughts all trapped like in a bottle.
Neither engines nor machines are gluttonous or slothful. So can we please dispense with the silly moralizing as far as the diet game goes? Determinism is true. Existentialism is also true. And what we do here and in each and every one of our individual lives is work out that paradox in our own unique way.
You know what the difference is between you and me? I make this look good.
Make your way look good too, family. Make your way look good too. It's your boy Danny reminding you that you are beautiful, capable, and strong, which means that you are good enough for whatever fate cooks up and sends your way. And you are going to stay that way because you are going to eat meat and move weight. Okay? You're also going to stay on the perimeter of the grocery store. That's the easiest way to do that diet-wise. See you again next week. Chuck a deuce!